Well, 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 would you look at what day it is? It's time for another ReZero video. It's good to be covering this week to week. I'm in a good mood every time there's a new episode of ReZero, even though it does try to break me mentally. It's still a great time. And Hoobastank, we are here to talk about ReZero Season 2, Episode 3, The Long-Awaited Reunion. But before we get into that, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 25K before the end of the year. It's gonna be close, so we're gonna need all hands on deck. And if you're considering it, let me push you over the edge. Did you know that when you hit that subscribe button and you ring that little bell icon after you hit the sub button, true fact, Echidna will actually invite you to a tea party. True fact, for real, hit that sub button, totally not lying. So without further ado, here we go, diving right into the episode. And scene one, we just kick off, just no OP, too bad, OPs are for chumps. We're just diving right in. And it is Echidna, aka Donna, inviting Subaru to a tea party. Now, allow me to say right off the top, I love Donna. I was surprised. I was not anticipating how hard I would fall for Donna. Like, immediately, I'm like, oh, this girl's the best. Don't get me wrong, I'm still Team Krush all the way. That said, and I mean, we've been through this already where the ReZero characters are just like, oh, they're so great. Like, they're just to die for, especially the longer you get to know them, so I can only anticipate my love for Donna will only grow. Also, y'all know we like nicknames here on the channel. Just because they're fun, and it's shorthand, it's easier to remember characters' names if they have a goofy nickname, or even just like a traditional-ass nickname, makes it easier to remember specific characters. And with Echidna, her name is already kind of easy to remember, so I really wasn't anticipating giving her a nickname, but the comment section was very quick to say that the fandom calls her Donna. This confused me at first, because Echidna and Donna don't really sound the same, until I heard Maya Sakamoto, who, again, Maya Sakamoto putting in work this season, by the way, just saying, like, she's all over the place. But Maya Sakamoto, the way she says the name, Echidna, it's with that dialect, right? So instead of Echidna, as it is in the West, it's Echidona. Echidona. Donna. Very cool. I love it. I was like, that's sweet. Like, it made me go like, oh, that's actually really sweet. I like that. That's adorable. So Donna it is. I love that. And honestly, I have this as like the first note in the notes here for this week's episode, but Donna's kind of great. Like, immediately, I was very pleasantly surprised how much I liked this character right away. And it's interesting too, right? Because her design is very unique. Well, okay, maybe unique's not quite the word I should be using. It's not that it's unique, it's just that it's interesting. Like, the character is, like, it's the hair, the eyebrows, everything's white. But the rest is, like, mostly black. So it's, like, white on black, very black and white character design. With, interestingly enough, a green butterfly hairpin. And that's like the one splash of color she gets is green. Now, I will say, normally, you guys know me, like, I have like a little like list of notes where I'm like, oh, this is what this part of the character design could mean, and this is what this means. I didn't take notes, at least I didn't take too many during the tea party scene because I was just entranced. Now, that said, because I didn't have a whole ton of time, like, I didn't actually like sink my teeth into the character design too much, I'm kind of giving you like a slapdash rushed character design here, or at least character psychology or color psychology little segment here. That said, the one thing I really want to zone in on when it comes to the character is that green butterfly hairpin. The reason why I specify green is because she's the Witch of Greed. That is very funny. Of course, the butterfly would be green. Green is, like, don't get me wrong, green typically represents, like, harmony and luck and restoration and nice things. However, it also represents stuff like jealousy and materialism, stuff that's typically associated with what? Yes, that's right, greed. Very good use of your colors in this one. Although, from what I looked up, the character design, because when I looked up Echidna just now, the character design in the books doesn't have the butterfly having a color. It just sort of looks gray. So I think that's interesting, that the anime's like, nah, make it green. That's actually very clever. So because of that, I'm gonna give a shout out to Kyuta Sakai for the character design on that one. The added touch of green, very good. as well as Izumi Sakamoto, the color designer, just because the whole scene is beautifully colored. So I have to give shoutouts. The color in the Tea Party is great, fantastic even, and y'all know me, I love me some color. So of course I was gonna be all about this. But let's go ahead and go a little bit beyond just the design of Donna, because honestly, as I said, she's kinda great. Like, genuinely, I anticipated, like, when she first starts to speak, the way, and the trailer, and I have some thoughts on the trailer now that I think about it. We'll get to that more once we reunite with Rosewall later in the video, but the trailer made her seem like she was going to be a bigger deal, which I appreciate. So the trailer, in this aspect, didn't give too much away. Because I thought Donna was going to be, like, really intimidating and scary and, like, ooh. And she is, don't get me wrong. Like, there's a scene that we will get to in just a second that's very, like, Willy Wonka and that weird, like, chocolate cave thing that's seen in Willy Wonka where there's, like, all the creepy stuff on the cave walls. There's a scene like that in the Tea Party. But for the most part, Donna is just this very, like, goofy, well, not goofy, but, like, funny character? I don't even want to say funny. It's just her mannerisms kind of got a chuckle out of me. Like, this certain little things she does, especially towards the end of the Tea Party, where Subaru has to leave and Donna's like, wait, no, don't you want to talk to me? Do you have any idea how many people would want to talk to me? Like, she's got a little bit of an ego, which I appreciate. She's also dead, which, like, I mean, yeah, but, like, at the same time, it's just like, you don't look dead. Jeez. But regardless, she's genuinely really great. And I was actually, like, really pleasantly surprised with how endearing I found the character, even though, as she says herself, she's a very evil witch. Like, she's a very, like, evil person, which Rosewall later kind of says the opposite, where he's like, don't call, like calling her the Witch of Greed implies that she's evil. You call her Echidna, right? And I'm like, that's interesting. I wonder what that's about, because Donna seems to think that she is evil, whereas other characters like Rosewall don't seem to think so. And even I'm sitting in my computer chair watching this, like, she don't seem evil. In fact, let's go ahead and talk about the other witches too, because they sort of get name dropped here in a bit of a Just Monica moment. And what do I mean by a Just Monica moment? Well, the world falls apart. That was a surprise. And it genuinely does fall apart in quite the same way that the world falls apart in Doki Doki Literature Club. Spoilers for a few years old game. I've been gotten in trouble for spoiling things that are a few years to a few months old, so if you haven't played Doki Doki Literature Club, friggin' rip, my bad, but you should have played it by now. That said, yeah, the world falls apart like Doki Doki Literature Club. And Donna just sort of, like, gives Subaru this very, again, Willy Wonka-esque, like, rundown of all the witches, and it's sort of, like, unnerving, especially by the time they get to the Witch of Envy. It's, the whole thing is just, like, I don't know, there's something uncomfortable about it, but at the same time, like, when she's describing what the witches did, I'm like, none of y'all seem, like, inherently evil. It's perhaps your actions that have deemed you as evil in the eyes of, you know, everybody else. Maybe I'm just not getting some lore stuff that was explained to me. Y'all know me a lot. Sometimes, like, some lore stuff goes over my head a bit. But, yeah, like, nothing they did seemed inherently bad. And I'm sure that it's, like, it is. It's just the way that Donna explains it, it's not. But again, just the way that it's being told to Subaru, and by connection the audience, something about this scene is very uncomfortable. Something about it is very off. And it's the whole, like, space aspect of it, like the way the witches are, like, silhouetted and move around Subaru, and it's like, oh, I don't like this. And then by the time they get to the Witch of Envy, it's like the part in Willy Wonka where he just friggin' screams, right? It's like, like, I don't like it. I don't like it. I do like it, but I don't like it. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, I'm scared. Like, even Subaru looks, like, genuinely mortified in this scene, and I'm like, I'm uncomfortable. It's interesting how this character can go from being this, like, goofy, like, character who just wants a tea party, pulling some Abakio level tricks on my boy Subaru, to suddenly, like, being insanely creepy and unnerving. Like, she just flips on a dime, and it's very interesting. I really, really like Donna a lot. And yeah, like I said, Envy seems hella scary. Like, honestly, most of the witches seem kind of scary, but Envy in particular seems hella scary. And Subaru, interestingly enough, speaking of, like, witch stuff, and I'm gonna need a little bit more time to stew on what this means, per se. But when Subaru killed Betelgeuse Romani de Conti des, sorry, Jesus, I don't know where that came from. But when Subaru killed Betelgeuse, he had obtained the Sloth Witch Factor. Interesting. So is Subaru a witch now? What is the witch factor? You know, I'm still, like, there's some stuff that I'm still like, huh? But, like, I don't think we're supposed to know, unless maybe anime-onlys were supposed to know by now. I'm still in the dark. Maybe the rest of the anime-onlys, such as myself, know what's going on. I'm still like, yep, I don't know, but I'm enjoying the ride, though. Like, I don't totally know what's going on, but I'm having fun. Needless to say, the fact that Subaru had the Sloth Witch Factor enabled him to enter the witch's graveyard, which is then referred to as Sanctuary. Sanctuary! And it actually kept him intact during that walk over, which is, once again, very interesting. I don't know what it means for my boy, but I'm excited. I have thoughts, but I'm not going to share them just because, like, if they're right, then I'd be spoiling it. So I'm not gonna say, because I have a good feeling like I'm right. But I wonder what it is specifically that the Sloth Witch Factor does. And yeah, I don't know. I really liked this conversation. Like, Donna really is just sort of like informing Subaru on how shit works. And as I said last week, I was sort of surprised to see Donna make such an early appearance in the series. But I don't really care because she's great. She's sort of like she's Monica, but only in the witch's graveyard, only in Sanctuary. You know what I mean? So, you know, just Donna, but also just Krush, though. So, like, Donna, I see you, appreciate you, but it's still all about my girl Krush. But that said, Subaru does actually just try to go back after he has this conversation with Donna, and she is very clearly upset because she's like, how? Do you have any idea how many people search for me, who try to talk to me all the time? You want to leave to see Amelia? Really, dog? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. like, of course he does. That's his girl. And he says, like, listen, I'll come back and have tea with you another day. And I'm thinking, like, I volunteer to go have tea with Donna, because that sounds dope. That said, I want to brew the tea myself because I don't trust Donna. But it's fun. It's a fun scene. I have a feeling, like, Donna's gonna end up, like, being sort of, like, I don't want to say, like, part of a harem, because Subaru don't really have a harem. It's all about Amelia. But, like, you know, like, one of the characters, like, one of the girl characters who goofs around with Subaru. Like, I have a feeling this isn't, like, the last time we'll see Donna, especially since the fans gave her a friggin' nickname. Tells me she's going to be around for a while. Plus, she just seems very important, being, you know, the Witch of Greed and all. So I don't think this is the last time we see her. I don't even think this is the last time we see her for a few weeks. Like, I anticipate seeing her again pretty soon. Only because the trailer hyped her up as, like, a really big deal. So I don't think that this is, like, the end of our time with Donna. But that said, if it were to be the end of the time with Donna for, like, the whole season, that's a really good impression. Like, both to give us as a first impression and also to leave us with Donna's the best. Now, that said, let us transition onward into the next scene where we meet yet another new character, Garfiel, who is voiced, by the way, by Nobuhiko Okamoto, in probably the best casting in all of ReZero. Like, Garfield, who, by the way, Nobuhiko actually says Garfield. So, yeah. Don't you worry, I'm about to give him his nickname. You know what it is, because I said it last week. But, yeah, the fact that they got Nobuhiko to voice Garfield is perfect. Like, legitimately, like, his style of, like, like that, like, Deku, like that nonsense, it's perfect for this character. Now, that said, Garfield is a goofy name, so I will occasionally be referring to my boy Garfield as Lasagna and I hereby request somebody make a, by the end of the season or before the end of the season, I don't care when, but I expect to see a bitch lasagna AMV with my boy Garfield as the focus. Just, you know, I just want to see it. But yeah, Lasagna here has a very fun design. Immediately telling you a lot about the character without having to tell you too much. From the very first moments where you hear Okamoto's dulcet tones throwing Subaru across the dirt field thing that they're in front of the ruins there. When they turn around and you see the character's design, immediately you're like, oh, he's a dead ringer for Freddy. This is clearly like Freddy's brother or something, or her cousin, or something like that. Just in some way connected to our girl Freddy. Because he's got the green eyes, the blonde hair, and of course, the shark teeth. In fact, at one point when he's like, how did you know about Frederica? And Subaru's like, are you serious? He's like, are you kidding me right now? How did I not know you were connected to Frederica? Which again, like, that's great character design. Like, immediately when you see him, you're like, ah, that man is in some way connected to Freddy. So it's good stuff. And there is a scar, a cross scar, going across his face, like from about like the top of the nose and just around the forehead and around the eyes. There's like a cross-shaped scar, which tells us this man is clearly battle-crazed. And on top of that, his outfit in general sort of gives you that hint that this dude is all about, like, a battle. You don't see any weapons on him, just his fists, right? Like, and his fists are, like, deadly weapons. But that scar tells you, like, it's not so much that he's, like, a total badass and unstoppable monster. Stuff has clearly hurt him in the past, but he is a badass, and he's willing to sort of continue fighting. So you get a lot from that character design. So he is in some way connected to Freddy. You got the cross scar going across the top of the nose and around the forehead. Then you got the black vest with magenta lines going down and across. Now, magenta is a shade of pink, which I was not expecting pink with this character. I'll admit that was a bit of a surprise. But when you think about it, pink does have a sort of like playfulness to it. And my boy Lasagna here very clearly has a playful side, but not like in a, hey, let's go have fun and romp around in the flowers. Like, no, my man is like the type, my man, much like my man Lasagna, much like his namesake, a cat, is the type of dude who would play with his prey a little bit, you know what I mean? So I see why the pink is incorporated in there. Pink being a very playful, sort of like energetic type of color. It's the pink makes a lot of sense to me. And the black is basically there just to kind of offset the magenta, and it just sort of looks good on him. I'm not gonna lie. It could denote a level of things such as like authority, maybe like a little bit of mystery since we don't know exactly like why is he here. That could be part of the character design, but honestly, I think it's mainly just to show off the pink and, of course, the purple on his battle skirt. Okay, the man is technically wearing pants. I will admit that it's sort of like it could be like a hide tied around his waist or something, but I'm just gonna say it outright. My man wearing a battle skirt. He kind of looks like Kingdom Hearts 1 Riku when he's in dark mode. You know what I mean? That sort of like battle, like this is not a skirt. This is a battle kilt. Like this is a battle skirt, damn it. Like that's kind of what it looked like. And purple, as we've talked about in other videos, specifically the color purple being very heavily associated with the Misfit at Demon King Academy. Purple is a very mysterious and a color that is typically associated with royalty, which I find interesting. But it's also a color of sophistication and mystery, and I do think mystery works for the character. Also, it's a very arrogant color, since for a long time, purple was only worn by royalty, like in our own history. So it's also a very arrogant color. There's a level of arrogance to it since there's this sort of like aristocratic nature of the color purple. So the fact that my man's wearing like a battle kilt made of light and dark purple, like shades of light and dark purple, it also shows off he's a little bit arrogant. So he's playful, he's a bit arrogant, and he's loud and bombastic since he's not wearing like a shirt underneath there, so it shows off like just how kind of badass he is. Lasagna, my main man Lasagna, Garfield, is a very, very fun character design, and it makes for a very, very fun character, especially when you have a Seiyu as energetic as Okamoto, as like playing the character. It's fantastic. I think they did flawlessly with this character. Probably going to end up being my favorite character of Season 2. immediate favorite. And I'm gonna be real with you, this man is a savage. Like, this dude is a straight up beast. And it's like, like the way he interacts with the other characters, because immediately, like, when Subaru, like, before he even gets tossed around by Lasagna Boy, you see Otto just, like, totally knocked right the hell out. Like, he's got, like, the dizzy eyes, and he's, like, doing the, like that Krillin mutter, you know what I mean? Like, just like, don't take me out, coach, to quote Tentamon. That's what's going on with Otto right now. And poor Patty the dragon is like, man, that looked like it hurt. Like, Patty's just like, damn. But when Subaru gets tossed, immediately our girl Patty's like, oh, hell no. And when he, like, so Patty charges, and I'm thinking, like, oh, Patty, like, oh, Grace, like, Patty, no, please, no. And, like, Lasagna Boy just grabs Patty by the neck. And I'm like, don't. Like, I'm like, oh, God, please, no. And in fairness, he says, like, I'm not gonna hurt you, but I am gonna put your ass to sleep. And he, like, throws Patty down to the ground. And I'm immediately like, ooh, this bitch has gotta die. Like, oh, nope, time to die. And before he can get, like, a big punch on Subaru's like, wait. Like, no. Which is what I would do in the same situation, because he looked like he could have knocked Subaru every which way but loose. And Subaru's like, wait. You know Freddy, right? Like, you know Freddy? You know Frederica? Right? We all good? And of course, this man's like, Nani? How do you know my connection to Frederica? And that's where you get Subaru doing the, like, as I said earlier, that, like, bitch, are you serious? Like, gee, I wonder why. You even see, like, a glistening come off the shark tooth. It's like, bruh, anybody could tell. So it was a fun scene. A great introduction to the character as well. Just totally perfect intro. But from there, once Garfield knows that they're cool and they're friends with Freddy, he joins the team, which is kind of interesting. And him and Otto have some very solid banter back and forth. And y'all know me. I am a shipping aficionado. And I can sense a ship from like a mile away. So I will say that when Otto and my boy Lasagna Boy were chit-chatting, I was like, huh, okay. All right, I'm gonna keep this in my notes. Don't you worry, I'm gonna keep an eye on Otto and Garfield. Otfield? Garto. I don't know, I'll think about it. But, like, again, I don't necessarily ship it just now. You know, we gotta wait to see if this maybe develops into a bro TP. You gotta be patient, you know. Can't just jump the gun with these. I have been known to jump the gun on ships, so I have to try to rein it in. Just keep an eye on them, see how shit develops. I will say, I'm already a fan, but again, be patient. Patience is a virtue, my friends. So again, just keep an eye on it. But that said, yeah, I really like the banter between the two of them. And in this scene, again, speaking of ships, may I just say that the ride there is just nothing but shippy moments, right? Between Otto and Garfield, and then Amelia waking up, and immediately, like, just, she wakes up, and Subaru's like, oh, thank God, I was so worried. And he says that, and then, like, Amelia, like, glances over to the side and sees Lasagna Boy sitting there. And she jumps to her feet and puts her arms in front of Subaru, right? And just says, like, don't hurt him! Like, I don't know who you are, but blah, blah, blah. Cute. Like, immediately I was like, that's adorable. This is why we're here. Like, I was very, very, very happy to see Amelia standing up for Subaru. That shit is adorable. I loved it. Like, this is, again, just part of the reason why I'm like, yeah, I made a correct decision. This is the way. Amelia and Subaru is the way. Y'all know I love Rem. Y'all know this. But Amelia and Subaru is the way. And it's interesting, too, right? So as they're having this conversation, our boy, Lasagna Boy, sort of, like, fills everybody in on, like, the situation why Amelia passed out but nobody else. And basically the idea is that when you pass through that gate, if you are of mixed descent, right? If you're like Amelia and you're like a half-elf, you pass out, which makes Garfield like half-beast man. So, like, I guess he would also have trouble passing through the barrier, something like that. He also tells us a little bit about what Sanctuary is, and it's not what I thought it would be, judging off the name. Sanctuary, again, as Donna pointed out earlier, it's not necessarily called Sanctuary, it's actually the Witch's Graveyard, but some folks labeled it as Sanctuary, so there it is. And yeah, not quite what they made it sound like. This place is like a run-down, shabby-looking village. In fairness, like there's some cool like bestial characters who live there, which is kind of dope. But yeah, it's just sort of like a rundown village, and I was like, oh, that's not quite what I expected. That's a little bit interesting. And even Lasagna Boy's just like, yeah, I don't know what y'all thought this was gonna be, but it ain't that. But this leads us nicely into the next scene where we see the first steps into Sanctuary, and we get a reunion with Ram, my girl. I missed you. I don't get the hate for Ram. Everybody's like, oh, Ram, ha ha ha. Like, and the answer's obvious. Like, bitch, of course the answer's obvious. Rem has had way more development than Ram has, but that doesn't make Ram a bad character. Ram's fun, goddammit. Like, I like Ram a hell of a lot. So when I saw my girl, I'm like, welcome back. Ram's the reason why I sometimes called Subaru Barusu, because I love that nickname. Ram's my girl. I adore Ram. She's up there in the higher echelon of ReZero girls. I don't care what y'all say. I love Ram. So getting the reunion with Ram is actually really, really great. The one thing I will say, and this is a bit sad, is when Ram sees them, she's like, hey, like, long time no see. Like, she doesn't quite say it like that, but you can tell that's where her emotions are, right? And she's like, Subaru, Amelia, oh, this is nice, right? But she doesn't say it like that. She's very like Barusu, hello, welcome back, Amelia-sama, welcome. Like, you know, she's very, like, keeping it profesh, but on the inside, you can see just, like, the little notes of Ram, you can just tell where her heart's at. And it's nice. I'm happy to see her, and I really am. Like, when I saw Ram, like, oh, thank God, some sense of normalcy. But there is no real sense of normalcy, because as they're talking, Subaru sort of like, he starts getting flashes of Rem and Ram, and it's like, oh yeah, Rem's like not technically, like, Rem's just a shell now and nobody really remembers her, including Ram, which is very like, oh, this is sad now. And even like Amelia butting in to be like, hey, you know what, we should probably talk about this inside. And Ram's like, yeah, because Ram obviously notices the look that Subaru's giving her, and she's like, what the, like, Barusu, what the hell's wrong with you? But yeah, Amelia's just like, we should talk inside. Ram's like, yeah, I'll lead the way. And then there's this nice little moment where Amelia tells Subaru, like, hey, listen, like, I know what you were thinking, so I jumped in. Sorry if I, you know, maybe, like, stole the thunder a little bit or, like, interrupted you or anything like that, but I just kind of felt like that was the right thing to do. And when she said that, I was like, yes, Amelia. Amelia is great, goddammit. Like, I'm glad that we get all this time with Amelia right now, because it's like, hell yeah. Amelia is, like, very quick on her feet. Like, in both, like, figuratively and, like, literally, but in this case, figuratively. And, yeah, like, her and Subaru have this sweet little moment where they're like, we're gonna fix Rem, and we're gonna make sure that Ram and her get a big, happy reunion. Don't worry, right? And it's like, oh, that's sweet. Because, yeah, it is weird, like, because the whole time I'm like, shouldn't she be asking about Rem? Oh, right! She doesn't friggin' remember. Who's Rem? There you go, the obligatory who's Rem joke. But yeah, that's a hell of a thing, that. Regardless, before we transition to the next episode, or next scene, rather, I have to say that my boy Otto rightfully getting some well-deserved, if slightly fake, appreciation. Like, when Subaru says, like, listen, Otto, like, if you hadn't jumped in when you did, Amelia could have gotten hurt by Lasagna Boy over there. So, you know, we owe you quite a bit. You did some good work today, my boy. And Otto's like, oh, well, yes, I suppose I did. And it's like, yeah, seems a little fake on Subaru's part. In fact, we find out, like, oh, God, that guy's gullible is pretty much Subaru's reaction when Otto's just like, yeah, well, I'll go sort things out over here. You guys go enjoy your visit with Rosebud. You know what I mean? Like, it's just Otto being Otto. I love this kid. Like, I love Otto. He's the best. Subaru being snotty towards him is like, man, don't be like that. Like, Otto did do good. Like, even though he got the shit kicked out of him by Lasagna Boy. And we didn't get to see it, but just judging off the way we saw Otto, like, yeah, it didn't seem to go very well. He did help, damn it. Like, give Otto some shine, damn it. Like, Otto deserves some appreciation in this house. In this house, we appreciate Otto. We do not insult Otto. Otto is a good boy. Otto is potentially best boy. In this house, we appreciate best boy. But after Otto takes a hike, this leads us to our reunion with Rosewall. Yay. Oh, Rosewall, I missed you. I missed this man. And, I'm not gonna lie, he's looked better. Like, my dude is all sorts of messed up. But the one thing I should probably emphasize, and this is where I talk a little bit about the trailer again, you could probably see it from the screenshot I'm using. I didn't need to see Rosewall looking all beat up like that, because that would have been a fun surprise to see in the episode, but they just sort of show it in the trailer. And it's like, damn it, why did you do that? Like, I don't know. Like, it's not a huge spoiler or anything. But it's like, that would have been a fun surprise to see in the episode. But I was sort of like already aware that we're going to see Rosewall all like beat up when we first see him, right? So when they show him and they're like, oh, Rosewall, look at you. And it cuts to him all beat up. And you're supposed to have this reaction of like, oh, what happened to Rosewall? And it's like, I'm mostly just like, oh yeah, I remember that from the trailer. Wonder when we're gonna get the explanation as to why he looks like that. And thankfully, we don't really have to wait long. We get a pretty quick explanation of what the hell happened to Rosewall. But yeah, it was I don't know. I'm very torn on watching. This is part of the reason why I don't like regularly like watching anime trailers or even like any trailer these days. Like it's a little like sometimes like I don't really want you to spoil anything for. I like teaser trailers. Teaser trailers is good. Gives you a little bit of an idea of what's gonna happen. But those like big trailers, I tend to avoid them. Like Fruits Basket recently had like a big trailer that everyone's like, did you see the trailer? I was like, no. And I found out that the trailer spoils like a bunch of big plot points. And ReZero didn't really spoil anything, but it did show like some big scenes that happened in the early episodes that it's like, ooh, I wish I didn't see that. Not necessarily the fault of the trailer, more so my own fault for watching the trailer. I don't think I will do that in the future. But that said, again, not a huge deal. We knew Rosewall was going to get all beat up. And as I said, it's very quick when we find out, like from seeing him all beat up to finding out why he is all beat up. It's a very quick explanation. And it's basically that when they tried to leave, it turns out they can't really do that. There's like a trial to leave Sanctuary, and whatever happened, whatever the trial was, it beat the ever-living hell out of Rosewall, and it did not go very well. And this is where Lasagna Boy makes his reappearance and says that this is Sanctuary's demands, right? And it's like, okay, why is my boy evil now? That's weird. I mean, not evil, but it's like, why are you like this? I'm very confused. But yeah, Lasagna Boy, I can't get a read on whether or not he's good or bad, and I don't really care. I like him regardless. But yeah, so there is a trial of some sort to leave Sanctuary, right? Like, you have to pass this trial in order for everybody to leave. And the demands of Sanctuary are thus, that if somebody does not beat the trial, then nobody is allowed to leave. You're all hostages, right? And you'll be fed 3 times a day, which is lovely, but you'll have to stay there forever, right? So that's the rules. So, of course, the townsfolk are pretty much sort of just like they're putting their fate in the hands of Subaru, or at least they think they are. And speaking of the townsfolk, so like that's an interesting scene, right? Where the townsfolk see Subaru and they're like, oh, he's alive, yay! And everybody's all happy to see him, and I'm like, hey, put some respect on my boy. Like, that's nice, I appreciate that. And Subaru's like, hey, that's right, I am alive, surprise! You know, because that's not always the case with Subaru. But yeah, so my boy shows up like, hey, I'm alive, somehow. And he basically says, like, as you probably know, there's gonna be a trial in order to get us the hell out of here. And everybody's like, so Subaru, like, what are you gonna do? He's like, oh, I'm not taking the trial, that's not me, fam. That is gonna be Amelia. And Amelia walks in, and I don't know if y'all remember, but the townsfolk don't like Amelia very much. So I was immediately like, oh god, here we go. Because I thought this was gonna be like the townsfolk being like, I don't want her to take the trial, she's not gonna pass, right? Like I assumed it was gonna be something on the level of I don't want to wear a mask type dumb shit. But no, it's not that. I appreciate that. Amelia basically like confirms that she's the one who's gonna be taking the trial, and the chief of the village shows up and she's like, okay, like, is this just because you want us to like vote for you when it comes to the like princess selection thing? Like, we get it if that's the case, but if not, then we just want to make sure that you're not like doing some witch stuff that's sort of beyond our realm of understanding. Like, we just want to know what the deal is here. And Amelia, to her credit, gives like a speech that basically says, I don't have a speech prepared. And she does so very eloquently, right? Like Amelia just says like, listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't have any words to really make you confident in me. I have nothing I can say to instill any sort of courage or comfort. I have no words that can deliver that. All I can do is my best. And all I really want to do, I don't even care if you pick me for the royal selection or anything like that. My main concern is I just want to be your friend. And it's like, aww, that's very sweet. I would have said like a bit of both, you know? Like I would have pulled the Star-Lord and just been like, bit of both. Like I'm gonna do some crazy witch stuff. And I'm doing this mostly because like, yeah, I want you to help me win the royal selection, but also just because like it's the right thing to do. Right? But Amelia basically just leans more towards the right thing to do side of things. It just says that she wants to be their friend. And you see like these quick little flashes of the townsfolk being kind of shitty to Amelia in the past. And Subaru sort of smiles when Amelia says that she just wants to be their friend. And the chief's like, Amelia-sama, like we humbly request that you accept our offer of friendship. And it's like, oh, this is adorable. Like it's like, yay, happiness in ReZero. Who would have known? But yeah, it was very, very sweet. And I don't know, I really appreciated this whole scene. I just thought this whole scene was great. I love Ram and Subaru talking outside. And she's like, Barusu, you know, Amelia's definitely changed a little bit. I wonder who could have instilled that. But Subaru just says like, nope, I didn't do nothing. She's just growing on her own. And it's like, aw, why is this scene so sweet? It's very adorable. And then, after gathering some lesser spirits together, it's time. It's time for Amelia to take on the trial. The trial by combat. I mean, the trial of Sanctuary. And, of course, after she gathers those spirits, those lesser spirits, this would be a good time for Puck to reappear, but my boy is not here. So Amelia has to gather some lesser spirits together, and more importantly than that, she needs one final big cheer from Subaru, which is adorable. Again, this whole ending scene up until a certain point is very cute. And Subaru gives one big cheer, right? He's just like, hell yeah, EMC, Amelia. And it's like, oh, this is fantastic. And Amelia basically just, you know, she musters up the courage with one final cheer from Subaru, and she's like, okay, I got this, Leroy Jenkins! And just runs into the ruins, runs into the challenge, and it's supposed to light up green when the challenge is going on, right? And Subaru says, like, listen, I know the challenge is tough, but, like, Lasagna Boy, what the hell, man? Like, why didn't you just take the challenge if you want to leave so bad? And Lasagna Boy just fires back with, like, if you think, like, if it were that easy, of course I would have done it by now. Like, if I could, I would, is what he said. Like, I would if I could. And Ram is like, that's an interesting phrase to use. But as they're having this conversation, that green light that's supposed to stay, like, on when the test is going on, or the trial, that goes off. And Subaru's like, wait, what the hell? Where's Amelia? What happened? Right? And even Lasagna Boy's like, I don't know. It's not supposed to do that. And I'm like, man, this game is glitched. Right? So it's like, oh no. So Subaru charges forward, and then it lights up green again. And you're like, wait, what? And even like Ram and Lasagna Boy are like, wait, what? And Subaru's like, I don't know, it's working, just like it, who cares? And I had the same reaction of like, yeah, Subaru's right, who cares? This isn't important right now. Like, what's important is getting Amelia back. Who cares right now? We'll answer that question of like, why later. Main thing, rescue first, questions later. So he charges in, and he says like, if I need you, I'll shout. Don't worry about it, stay out here. And he charges in, and he sees Amelia, and then my boy hears a voice and passes out, and when he wakes up, he's in his room. And when I say room, I don't mean like, oh, his room in like Rosewell Mansion. No, I mean his real room. I mean, this boy is back home. This boy's in the real world. What the hell? I was like legitimately like, what the hell just happened? Is he back? But it doesn't look like he's back. Like, is he back as in like he never left? Or is he back as in like he's back in time? Because his dad didn't seem to acknowledge the fact that he's been gone for a long time, you know? And his dad, by the way, like, this man jumps on Subaru and like lands on like, "Good morning, dad, attack!" or whatever it is that he says. Just like runs in, jumps, and just pounces on this dude, knocks the wind out of Subaru, and just basically announces himself. And by the way, Subaru's dad is jacked, man. That is one hell of a dude. And yeah, Subaru's just like, so not only does Subaru have the shock of waking up back in the real world with like a million questions, but now he got the wind knocked out of him by his dad, who, even though he has the wind knocked out of him, even though he has a million questions, you have to assume that he's probably happy to see him because it's been a long time, right? And now here's the thing, and this is just like a theory crafting from an anime only, so you light novel fans are about to get a good chuckle out of this. Are we about to get a Digimon thing? Like, you remember that episode of Digimon where Tai gets to go back to the real world just for a second, and he bumps into Kari, and they have like that moment where Tai is like he grabs the Digivice and he starts floating back up, and he has to say goodbye, and it's all sad. Is it gonna be like that? Is it gonna be like that? There's another isekai that happened recently where they also do that sort of thing where you have to say goodbye and it's all sad. I'm not gonna say what it is, but if you've seen it, it's from this year. In fact, it was from last season. You probably know what I'm talking about. But it's like, oh man, like I like those sad goodbyes. I don't know if I can handle that right now. I don't know. Is that gonna happen? I think that's what's gonna happen. Is that Subaru's gonna have to make a choice between the real world and saving Amelia, and saying goodbye to his parents like forever. And it's like, damn, I don't know if I'm emotionally prepared for that. I'm gonna be emotionally compromised. Again, this season's trying to make me cry. But with that said, everybody, that's gonna wrap up my thoughts on this week's episode of ReZero. I hope you guys enjoyed. And hey, if you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot and share if you care. And of course, as always, I have to give a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful names. Look at these beautiful people. And if you too would like to join these beautiful, beautiful people, then be sure to check out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can help keep this channel afloat, and I would sincerely appreciate it. Now, with that said, I am going to go do some mental preparations for next week's episode, just in case. And until next time, you stay classy, AniTube, and wash your dang hands.